So here's another way that it's possible to understand this. And this is based on, there's something in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, called the fast phobia cure, which has gotten very good results for many people. And it's one of those things, if you were to Google it, I don't recommend it, but if you were, you would probably find, again, it's like, you'd probably find 1,000 different people arguing that their way is the only way that works, which is, it can't be true because many people have gotten results from different variations on it. So it can't be that there's only one way that works. But I will say that a lot of the ways that people do it add unnecessary stuff, sort of like with the EFT, right? So it turns out, at least in my experience, doing the tapping is not actually necessary. Now, maybe you will find that's different for you, and that's fine. Do whatever works for you. But similarly with the fast phobia cure, I found that a lot of the things that people think are necessary turn out not to really be necessary. So it can be greatly simplified. And so I'm going to present that to you now, the simplified version. And so the essence of that is really to become aware of the response that you have, rather than, and to dissociate from the response rather than all the other things that people add into it. So people add complexities that are really above and beyond what's actually necessary. So here's the essence of it, is that you could imagine, so first of all, oftentimes when people have these very strong reactions to something, whether it's a phobia or it's a fear or whatever it is, it's usually because they're imagining, and they may not be conscious of this, but they can become conscious. They're usually imagining themselves in that situation in the first person, associated into the experience. And it's usually big and loud and fast, and therefore terrifying. So if a person has a fear of dogs, then usually what they're doing is they're usually unconsciously, they're imagining themselves in a situation, first person, immersed, associated into the experience of, like the scary dog attacking them. And it's all usually blown out of proportion. It's big, it's fast, it's loud, it's terrifying. Well, that's not a very resourceful state, right? That's like a panicking state. And so therefore, no wonder a person is thereby experiencing panic, because they're producing that state by what they're doing. And so when a person becomes aware of that, what they can do is they can shift that by imagining it from a third person perspective. So instead of imagining yourself first person associated into the experience, you can move it away from you. So you could imagine seeing a screen, like you could have your computer screen or your phone screen or your whatever at some distance from you. And imagine that you have on that a video of whatever you want to avoid, so that you can actually see yourself in the video. And oftentimes you could also like turn down the volume, you could slow it down so that it reduces the intensity of the experience. That's the number one thing, right? So you want to reduce the intensity so that you can actually start to face it instead of trying to avoid it. So just doing that much can be really helpful. But you can then do even better than that, which is then you could imagine that now imagine that you have a video of yourself watching yourself watch that video, right? So imagine that you have your screen where you have the video of yourself with whatever the experience is. So let's say it's a person has a phobia of dogs. So they could imagine that they're looking at a screen, they're looking at their phone or whatever, playing a video, seeing themselves with the dog. Now they could imagine that there's another device recording them watching that screen. And then they could imagine that they're now watching that video of themselves watching that screen, right? So now it's a double dissociation. You're not just watching yourself on the screen, you're watching yourself watch yourself on the screen. So this does a number of things, but among the things is that it can dramatically reduce the intensity of the experience, even though you can actually be present for the experience. And it can actually allow you to become aware of the subjective experience versus what you think of as some objective experience. It's not really objective. Just doing that oftentimes is enough. And this is amazing. There are countless examples of, I mean, I guess they could be counted, but there are a lot of examples of people who have cured themselves of longstanding phobias using that simple process. And it can happen in just a matter of minutes and it lasts. So if you find that the intensity of your experience is such that you have difficulty doing the first approach that I described of just saying, even though I have this whatever, I love and accept myself, and just alternating with that. If that intensity is still too great for you, then you could try this second approach.